Hi, my name is Jeff Pagano, and welcome to the Harping on Rugby preview show. And join me to look ahead to Saturday's match at the Aviva Stadium. Is someone back for his 55th Harping cap? It's good to have him back. Welcome back to Mr. Mark Jackson.
Cheers, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you on again. Well, before we get to the preview, Mark, there was the small matter of the Irish squad announcement for the Six Nations during the week. And of course, it was greeted by the general Irish fan base with overwhelming approval, as always. What was your take on it?
Not too many surprises, to be honest with you. It is what it is. We can only expect changes of a drip feed as opposed to any wholesale changes through the Farrell regime, but also seem to be continued with Easterby. Uh, Listen, we have to say the bulk of the squad is from Leinster due to form, and I don't think there's too much to argue with, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, Simon Easterby, of course, has taken over like the top dog. So it sort of kind of follows that you don't want to make too many changes. You want the players who have gotten the won the last two Six Nations, and there's been a few bumps along the way in the last while. And November wasn't great, but still, it's like you say, it wasn't that many surprises. But when we know we've had an Irish tour in the summer, with Lions out of the team and stuff, that's the time when you want to bring in the youngsters.
Yeah, there's guys that impressed down in South Africa that are probably feel a bit left out of it. Jude Postlewaite certainly impresses for Ulster this season, and maybe Thomas Ahern as well can consider himself unlucky. But listen, these guys are tried and tested at test level, and it's almost the opposite of the 1980s when you had to be really, really bad to get dropped out of the Irish team. You've got to be really, really good to get in there now at the moment. And listen, it ain't broke, don't fix it. That's
Yeah,
how it is.
yeah, that's the thing. I mean, you might be playing really well for your province, and you could definitely say that these players deserve a shot. But that also kind of depends on the players that are already there, not performing and not in form and things like that. So there's a lot of different factors. I get. There's a lot of talk out there about Leinster, and that they're overly lean, that they tend to lean towards Leinster. But all I want to add to that conversation is that it's not all that. Do you know what I mean? There are other reasons why these things happen.
Definitely not. Form is temporary, class is permanent, as they say, but form does count for a lot. And you take a look at the URC table, and it doesn't lie.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, listen, now it's time to look at our feature match of the week, which is, of course, Leinster v Bath in round four of the 24-25 Investec Champions Cup. This game is taking place at the Aviva Stadium on Saturday, January the 18th, kicking off at 5:30 p.m. TV coverage is on RTE2 and Premier Sports 1. Leinster named their matchday squad at lunchtime on Friday. If you're watching on YouTube, it should be right there on the screen, or for pod listeners, you'll find it in the program notes. Now, Mark has picked out some points about this Leinster team. It's just been named just before we started recording, and he wants to start with the second row.
Yeah, I think colloquially termed mac and cheese certainly really put a marker down, especially last weekend. I thought they were superb over in France. And again, great to see them selected for what will be an undoubted very, very tough end to a European campaign or group stages anyway. I think these two have stepped it up this season. I think McCarthy, Big Joe has certainly had some penalty issues in his career, and he seems over the last few months to have sort of quelled that a little bit. And James Ryan may not be the most flashy of second rows, especially when RG Snyman's in the background as such. But these guys get through an obscene amount of work, and they really are the backbone of a solid Leinster season.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we heard, RG is obviously did really well in the early weeks of the season, but I think the contingency was that if there was a choice for these big games, that the Irish players would get the preference and start. And it seems to be a good trio now, forming a good solid base for Leinster. Good in the line out, with and without the ball. Generally, I know the line out hasn't been great for Leinster, but still, but it's more their work rate around the park that's shown for them for sure.
Yeah, listen, second rows don't get the headlines that they usually uh, get in other parts of the pitch, but the amount of rooks they hit, the amount of tackles they put in, and Obviously, ball in hand, they don't get as many opportunities as RG Snyman, but their work is valuable to what Leinster have to achieve this season.
Absolutely. And for your second point, you want to look at our back three, which is very different to last week.
Yeah, defensive back three as opposed to an attacking back three. You know, Bath have put some points on the board this season, but they get around this back three either through kicking or trying to get through phases. You know, they won't be met with anything other than rock solid defense on the back three. Mr. Osborne has been really, really solid under the high ball. So it's almost two fullbacks and a centre as we see Gary Ringrose. Nobody's getting through him, and Keenan is always there as a last line of defence. Uh, very confident in the defensive capabilities of that back three, as opposed to our attacking side of things. We haven't set the world on fire, and I'm not sure this back three will do either. But you know, they're there for a specific reason, and you know, Finn Russell's going to have to play out of his skin to get any purchase from those guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting that it does look like we're kind of focusing on a defensive look because I mean this is a game where the weekends worked out. If we want to get one of those two top seedings, the team we're likely to be competing with for that second slot is Toulon, who don't play until Sunday evening. So it's up to us to go out on Saturday and hopefully, obviously win the match. That's first and foremost. But to get as many points as we can on the board and build up, we've got a 10 advantage of points difference on them. So we not only need that extra try, but to get that. So it doesn't look like, I mean, Jimmy O'Brien's coming on second half, but I mean, it doesn't look like a team that's considering what we've seen is going to go out and get a lot of points.
Yeah, on paper, it's a team built to sort of eke out points for 60 minutes and then hopefully in the last 20 put a couple of tries on the board, especially with the likes of Jimmy O'Brien coming along, hopefully adding some pace to that team. Um, Blayandal's attack, certainly in the early part of the season, and we'll go on to a point with Kieran Frawley, they certainly looked like they had advanced a bit. It seems to have stopped for the last few weeks, but Hugo Keenan at the early part of the season for me was definitely a player who was stepping more into sort of first and second receiver from the fullback position, and hopefully we see some more of that this weekend. Um, Again, as I said, a good solid 60 minutes, but this is not a soft bat team we're playing against, and they certainly have both a good solid 15 to start and indeed have some bench power to come on themselves.
Absolutely. And I suppose we can't, I mean, as often is the case when we look at a Leinster 23, it's not just the players who are there, it's those who aren't there. And I think Kieran Frawley, the absence of Kieran Frawley in that 23 will have a few head scratchings.
Yeah, me included. I'm one of his biggest fans, and I certainly think if Sam isn't purring, listen, the kids played really, really well, but not everything goes hunky dory all the time for everybody, especially in the fly half position. And Frawley certainly has the skill set to continue on a similar type of game that I prefer with Sam. But you listen, it is what it is. Leo's in charge. He's the man that makes the paid big money to make the calls, and we'll see how it works out. But
Yeah.
again, I don't know why Kieran Frawley can't make that 23.
Yeah, like I say, the team was literally just named as we're recording, so there might be, a statement or something between now and kickoff, but we'll see what happens there anyway. Okay, so listen, now it's time to have a quick look at Bath. Their Premiership runners-up last season. They now lead the table by 6 points with 8 wins from 10 so far this season. And in the Champions Cup, they defeated Claremont last weekend after narrow defeats to both La Rochelle and Benetton in their previous matches. How do you see their team, Mark?
Yeah, they're a solid outfit. You know, Van Gran has a bit of money to spend there, obviously with Finn Russell on the outside of their salary cap. He's recruited quite well. Indeed, two well-known faces in the second round, Quinn Rue and Ross Maloney. Certainly hardworking second rows themselves. And I really like Ted Hill at blindside. I think he's a player who will feature for England, or should feature for England more than he has done. Certainly got a very, very high work rate and a very good ball carrying skill set. Himself and Alfie Barbary in the back row would be two players we need to keep an eye on for this game in particular. Obviously, their big name halfback. They've got England nine and Ben Spencer, who's a good player. Probably not as flashy as some, but certainly outside him and Finn Russell, you've got enough talent there um, to worry Leinster for Saturday.
Yeah, and I suppose it's just all about how they can deal with our defense. I mean, it's the defensive side of things that has kept Leinster going this season. So they'll be looking at ways to overcome that. And Finn Russell is not beyond trying a few things. So whether they come off or not, we'll have to see which one of them shows up. But it's an interesting lineup for sure.
Yeah,
Okay, so
definitely. They've got a very solid centre partnership in a Jomu and Lawrence as well. It's one that we need to keep an eye on. So Geordie and Robbie Henshaw will be busy for 80 minutes for sure.
absolutely. Okay, so now a quick look at the officials. It's an all-French team with Luc Ramos holding the whistle. Now the weather conditions looks like they'll be perfect enough for a Saturday evening rugby in D4. The patchy clouds, 6 degrees, no wind, no rain is the prediction. So hopefully that pans out. That'd be a good evening for everyone for watching rugby. And which brings us to looking at the other Champions Cup matches this weekend. Which one stands out for you the most?
The one that stands out for me is Northampton and Munster. Chip on their shoulder from our cousins down south going across to England again with this week's squad news. And hopefully a few of those guys that are a bit slighted will put their hands up and show them why they should be in Ireland recognition. It won't be easy at all. Saints are playing well and are certainly a much different opposition at home as opposed to away. So a pretty hard test for Munster in the Midlands of England.
Yeah, and of course, also the other Irish provinces as well. Ulster will play Exeter. They've only really to play for maybe their spot in the Challenge Cup, but that would be good for them to have some knockout rugby anyway. And Connacht are chasing top seed in the Challenge Cup. They travel to Cardiff and in Leinster's pool, we also have Claremont against Bristol and Benetton against La Rochelle. Lots of action on this weekend, of course. Okay, and if you look back in our YouTube channel, you'll see a video where we go through all the different poll permutations that can happen this weekend. Keno did a spreadsheet and that you can follow, and if you want to check that out, you can download the spreadsheet straight off the video there as well. And then in other rugby this weekend, of course, the Celtic Challenge is still going on in women's rugby. The Wolfhounds play the Brighton Thunder in the only match this weekend on Saturday at 1:30. That's live on Irish Rugby Plus. Okay, so now it's head on the block time, Mark. How do you see it going at the Aviva on Saturday?
Uh, it almost comes down to a case of where we are at 60 minutes. Do we have to go for it? This is where having games on different days doesn't help anybody, especially when it comes to the seedings. So a bit like the sort of NFL playoffs, you'd love if all 4 or 5 teams were kicking off at a similar sort of time to see what you want to do, because that could depend on Leo's thoughts coming into the last 10, 20 minutes. Does he go for 4 point bonus or 4 try bonus points, or just hold what we have? Uh, Personally, I think we're probably a 7 to 10 point better team, and I think that will probably come out and do us just enough to get us through in the 2 seed for Saturday.
Fingers crossed. I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, they do have to go out and secure the win first. I mean, we talk a lot about the Premiership, and we kind of have a laugh that it's maybe not. Well, with the URC being the best league, it's hardly going to be any other league isn't going to shape up. But Bath are their leaders at the moment, and they didn't get that for nothing, and they've been doing well, getting steadily better as the years go on. They've been recruiting well, like you said, and of course, good Ross Maloney and Quinn Rue, like you say, familiar faces coming back. So it certainly won't be easy. So they'll be looking to get the win for sure, but hopefully they'll be able to, press home any advantages we have in the second half. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, we're going to leave it there, man. Many thanks for joining us, Mark. We hope to have you on again soon. Take care, man.
Cheers, Jeff. Thanks a million.
And many thanks to you all for checking out our latest preview show. Be sure to join us and sure to enjoy the match wherever you are, and leave a comment on our Facebook page after the full-time whistle. We will, of course, have our wrap pod for you, which we'll record on Sunday night. Hopefully you'll help us out by liking, sharing, and subscribing. In the meantime, stay safe, everyone. Slán.